I remember getting that phone call. I built that foundation through that pain and because of necessity. I didn't feel super fortunate. Like compared to my friends, I was poor. Oh, esta niña, she better marry rich one day. I think growing up, it was just like, you're too pretty to cry, don't cry.
I think to your point, it's just wasn't even in the realm of possibility for you.
Now I'm used to the idea that he's not here. But
take your time, Babba. What if I told you that at the lowest part of rock bottom, there's a trampoline? Welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast. I'm your host, Mayssa. Rock bottom is a terrifying place to be, but every success story has its rock bottom moment. For me, in the span of 1 year, I quit my job, got married, got divorced, checked a parent into rehab, launched a company, and eventually I hit my own rock bottom. But that moment was the beginning of a journey of healing, growth, and transformation that I never could have imagined. Now I'm sitting down with others to talk about their lowest points and their rock bottom moments. I want to know how they pulled themselves out and how those experiences shaped their creativity, art, and success. Through these honest conversations, I hope to create a map out of rock bottom to share with all of you, so that together we can see that the only way out is through and that something magical lies on the other side of rock bottom every single time. Today's guest is Babba Rivera. She's the award-winning entrepreneur, founder, and CEO of Ceremonia, a clean hair care brand rooted in Latinx heritage. And Babba was my dream first guest because she's also my best friend. We met as young, ambitious marketing girls working together at Uber, where Babba was actually one of the first 100 employees. We've lived through so many of life's ups and downs, through tears and laughter, and oftentimes both together. But when Babba's rock bottom arrived, none of us were prepared. I'm so grateful to Babba for her vulnerability and openness in sharing her story with us. She's a true alchemist, and there is so much inspiration to be gained through her story of shock, grief, but ultimately rebirth on the other side. And I want to share up front that there's a brief mention of suicidal thoughts in this episode, and we'll share a helpline number on the graphic on this video. Babba Rivera, welcome to Rock Bottom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So to start, I'd love for you to tell us about your childhood and your upbringing.
Wow, going straight into no big question. Just, how was your childhood? Well, I grew up in Sweden, but in a very Hispanic household. My mom and my dad were immigrants. They immigrated to Sweden during the Pinochet dictatorship. So I like to mention that because I feel like sometimes people think that, I don't know, oh, you grew up in Sweden, your parents are diplomats, or they went there for like a cool job opportunity. Like, no, my parents are not academics at all. So I grew up with, two parents who were not sure if they were in Sweden for good or if they were there just, temporarily. And I think they always had this idea that they would move back to Chile. And as a result, they never really made an effort to learn the language or get super integrated into the community. So I ended up being, their interpreter, their connection to the Swedish society. And I think as a result, I probably grew up faster than any of my peers. I have weird memories of going to the bank and helping my parents set up a bank account when I'm 8 years old.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's some beauty in that though, because as a result, I always felt like I can do anything and I never had anyone to lean on. So if you don't have anyone to lean on, you get to lean on yourself. And there is something about self-esteem that is built through that. But there is also a level of trauma that is built from that too. So and I have 4 children now, so I think about this a lot. I'm like, what part of that was good, and what part of that do I want to give to my children versus what part of it was maybe a little too much?
Yeah, it sounds like you had to really step into a grown-up role before you were a grown-up.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that has been a through line?
People always describe me as an old soul, and even as a teenager, I would go out and party and have fun, but I was still a grandma at heart, in the sense that like I had to be super responsible. I made sure all my friends were okay and made sure everyone got home. And, it's like just this like caretaker role. And I've always assumed that I am the adult in the room and I am the caretaker in every sort of situation, whether it's friendships or running a company or whatever it is.
Yeah. Do you know anything about your ancestors or just past generations? I mean, you mentioned your parents leaving Chile during a tumultuous time. Always curious about like the cultural background and even some of that ancestral background.
Yeah, I think there is something about all the women that came before me. I feel like I am breaking so many barriers in my own sort of like family history. And it's interesting with my mom too, because she grew up with a father who was quite successful. He was a chef and made good money while he was alive. And her mother never worked. So that was her sort of like, perspective, is the mother is home and the father works, and your social economic depends on the salary of your husband, basically. Yeah. But what was interesting for my mom is that she didn't understand that concept fully until she got married herself and her father passed away. So when her father passed away, there was no money to inherit because he just had a good salary. He didn't have any wealth built up. So suddenly, this cushion that I guess my mom maybe had growing up, disappeared. And she had decided to marry someone that did not have a career. And my mom never focused on building her own career because her perspective was that the woman is at home and you have a man to provide for you. So she went into, I think, a very shocking experience of suddenly like she had expensive taste, like she grew up with a dad who could buy her the nice shampoo, the nice skincare, And she was also the youngest and like the princess in the family. And now she didn't have her father anymore. And her husband, was just still trying to figure out how he was going to survive in this life. So I think for her, the learning of that, which is also kind of like sad, but I get it, was that you have to be careful who you marry. Oh. And I'm like, yeah, you have to be careful who you marry for all the other reasons, like not just like the wallet. And because her mother had warned her when she met my father, and my grandma, I guess, was like, oh, I don't think he's for you. Like, how is he going to provide for you and your taste and like, all these things. And my mom was like, oh, you guys are so like close-minded, She moved out of the house, moved in with my dad. And they were honestly so poor. Like my dad was like working at different gas stations, just, like trying to make ends meet. And they were also very young. My mom had my brother when she was 20. And they were living in a tiny little, house is a generous term, that didn't have floor. It was like dirt. Yeah. And my brother kept getting sick because it was like no heating and like they didn't have any hot water. And like, mind you, this is like little princess mom who grew up, with all the amenities. So I think that was a big shock for her. And then the Pinochet dictatorship happened, and they moved to Sweden, where again, they were like at the bottom of the society. So I think there is probably a lot of trauma like in my ancestral, baggage that in many ways I feel like it's not a coincidence that I grew up in Sweden and I got these opportunities. It's almost like it ends with me. Yeah. I feel that very powerfully, and especially, with the life that I'm building, not only for myself, but also for my daughters, and what trajectory do I want to set them up to.
I really got goosebumps when you said it ends with me. And also because you said that your mother's takeaway from this experience was, I should have listened to my mom and not married this poor guy, because what I was...
Poor my dad.
Because what I was hoping was the moral of the story was, actually, I can figure out how to take care of myself.
Maybe I should have gone to school, or maybe I can get a job.
I can learn a skill.
No, totally.
And I think it's so relatable coming from like certain cultural backgrounds that you know, for our mother's generation, I think a lot of them did want to break free from that story that we're just going to be a trophy wife or the men are going to control the money. Like a lot of our mothers did have ambition and did get educated, in my case. But then I don't know if they totally got to that place where they felt really deep down they could take care of themselves. Yeah. And that's kind of where it
like,
broke.
Did they really believe it?
Yeah.
I think I see this even, with some of the family members I have, that are even in my generation of like, they feel confident that they can accomplish school. Yes. But do they feel confident that they can be the breadwinner? Not sure. Right. Right. That's a different story. And I mean, I remember as a kid, I always had expensive taste, and I feel like you're the same. Like that's what unites us, like poor brown girls with expensive taste. Yeah. And I am and was already from an early age such a connoisseur. Like I just like the more expensive butter. And my mom would be like, oh my God, this girl is so dumb. Like no one will know the difference. It's just butter. So she would like put the cheaper butter in the container of the more expensive butter. And I would not eat it. Yeah. I was like, no, this is not my butter. Yeah. And I was also always a stick. So my mom was so worried about me not eating. So she would literally go and buy the expensive butter. Poor my mom. God bless her.
Well, because as you're talking, I'm like, the story for your life is not that I will accept less. The story for your life is not I will get less if someone else gives it to me.
No, exactly.
It's that I will have the things I want. I will have the expensive butter.
Like one way or another.
One way or another.
Exactly. And I remember my mom telling me in those moments, like, oh gosh, like she would tell me and like complain to like, my dad, be like, oh, esta niña, she better marry rich one day. And I remember like everyone just being like, yes. And then at one point I remember being like, wait, why do I need to marry rich? Like I remember asking her and she was like, yeah, because you have expensive taste. And I was like, but what if I become rich? Yeah. And she was like, haha. Right. It was like laughable. And it's so sad because she obviously didn't mean anything about it. It was just so ingrained in her belief system that was just like not within reach. Right. Like not us, you know? Right. Not us women.
That is so cultural and so programmed because having met your mother, like your mother could run a Fortune 500 company,
Totally. And she's so resilient. She's honestly
so resourceful.
She has gone through so much and she's still managed to live like a queen, one way or another. Like, mind you, my mom doesn't cook. She doesn't work. Like, she takes 2-hour baths,
I love it. I love it. I want to jump forward. And again, we're really just jumping right into it. And I want you to tell me about your rock bottom moment.
Yeah. So I think my rock bottom for sure is when my brother passed. It just doesn't compare to anything else. And I've had, hardships here and there and struggles or whatnot. But when my brother passed away, it was so sudden. It was in a way where it's like, I remember getting that phone call it was even worse because I was traveling and I was in Patagonia with my husband and my sister-in-law and her husband. And I didn't have any reception. I was so excited. I was, so addicted to my phone. So I was like, oh, like we're going to get 2 days, without our phones. And then we had been hiking the whole day. We come back to these like yurts or like a bed and breakfast, something super low key where they don't have Wi-Fi. But then I see this little sign, like if you need to connect to the Wi-Fi, like it was like super expensive. I think it was like $15. Yeah. Like, and I was like, that's ridiculous. And Carl was like, that's so dumb. And like, no, we're here to, like disconnect. And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, but I took such cute photos. I kind of want to post. Right. So I it was so dumb. Like the whole thing, I wasn't even supposed to be online, but I guess there was something, within me that had that urge. And I was like, who cares? It's $15. Like it's expensive for Wi-Fi, but it's not going to break my bank. And then I get online and I see all these like missed calls and Facebook messages. And they're like from my cousin, from like people that don't usually reach out to me. And then my stepsister was like, call your mom right away. And, my sister was like, please call mom. And it was like stomach ache right away. But still, like, death was not even like in my, like, that didn't even exist as an option. So I call my mom, and my stepdad picks up the phone, and then I get really scared. Then I'm like, oh my God, did something happen to my mom? And the first thing I'm thinking about is like, maybe she got hit by a car and she's at the hospital. Right. And then he tells me that like Anton is dead. And it's like, no, what? Mm.
Get a tissue. I think to your point, it's just wasn't even in the realm of possibility for you. So then, even as it's being said.
Yeah, like now I'm used to the idea that he's not here. But
take your time, Babba.
In the moment, you just want to, I mean, it's like, the stages of grief are so real. I think the first one is denial. And I remember just being like, no, like, you're wrong.
Yeah. Like, check again.
Yeah.
Like, someone's missing. Yeah.
And also how and why. Like,
because you guys had just been together.
Together, exactly. Yeah. We were all traveling in Chile together as a family. And then, and I can't even like, I remember just like handing the phone to Carl and screaming and falling on the bed. And and then Carl spoke to my stepdad and got like the whole rundown. This was the, I think, hardest thing for me to process of like, and I mean, I don't know, I haven't lost anyone, so it's probably always just hard to lose someone, but it felt so hard to accept someone taking their life. But also the way I thought about people taking their life was not how it happened to my brother. Right. I think, and this probably just goes to show that the spectrum is so much broader. I think we see this a lot with like what people think a rape is. They think it's like a man in a bush, like jumping out, and right. And it's like that maybe is like 1% of the cases, Yeah. And I think it's the same with suicide. I think we think that it's this like planned out thing where someone is sitting like being super sad and everyone should have seen it coming because they were so sad, and then they write a letter and
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like my brother was the happiest he's ever been. He was, so he had struggled with mental health for like since he was a teenager. Right. He had struggled with addiction, he had been in and out of rehabs. But the last year, he had been completely sober, like not only, free from drugs, also sober from alcohol. And like he was just like so happy. And I mean, in retrospect, he was probably, he maybe had made the decision and that was giving him peace. But it also doesn't feel that way because it almost felt like an accident still. So that I think was really hard for me to accept. Like even after the first shock, it was like, okay, so what happened? And like I'm trying to like I go back in our messages, I'm trying to like just right. understand. And he had a relapse, and it had triggered a psychosis, and during a state of psychosis he had jumped from a balcony, but it was also in response to police coming. So it's like, was he really planning to jump, or did he get scared and like he was in a psychosis and like so and I think I went through probably, I mean, I don't know how long, but for a long time just being like, if the police wouldn't have come, if this, if that. And I think now I've actually landed in a place where like maybe it happened in a way where it could have been prevented for that one time, but this was written in the cards. Unfortunately for us, I think it was meant to be. He was hurting, and he was living for us more than for himself.
Right. I mean, I think also when you have a family member who struggles with addiction, you're kind of riding the roller coaster with them. So when you say that last year felt like the most joy and that he had really come into this new place, I think as the family member, you almost are happier for them for the illusion that you now are creating for yourself, that it's now over.
Yeah,
you're
like
always waiting.
Clean. Yeah,
exactly. You're like always waiting for it to just be over, obviously for your loved one, and then for your whole family to just be healed.
Yeah.
And I think the truth with a lot of people who struggle with addiction and then being the family of that person is there's not just this one moment where it's all gonna just suddenly be over.
Yeah. I mean, it is like with all addictions, right? Like people who even like eating disorders or whatever, they say that you become like an eating you're an anoretic who eats.
Yes.
Right. And it's like you're an alcoholic who doesn't drink.
Yeah.
You are, because the addiction is not gone.
Right.
You're just like resisting, basically.
Right.
It almost feels like it's a condition for life, and it's something that you need to like. It's an active choice every day to resist, and I can't even imagine what that's like,
Yeah.
And I think for my brother, he really was living for us. He felt such a big I grew up young with our parents, being immigrants and all of that. He was my older brother, so he probably did even more.
Yeah.
And when my mother and my father got divorced, he was 14, and he really had to step up as like the man of the house. And as soon as he started working, he was, buying me clothes and like supporting, my mom with groceries. And I think there is such a burden that immigrant children carry when you have parents who can't stand on their own 2 feet.
Right.
And I think for him, it was like he probably looked around and he's like, wow, they're good now. Like I had married Carl. He was obsessed with Carl. Carl was obsessed with him. And my mother had remarried, and she was in a very stable relationship. And my stepdad is, fantastic. And my sister, was growing up to become, such a, smart and intelligent young lady. And so I think he was just like,
yeah,
like my work here is done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell me then about what came after for you?
Yeah. So it was interesting because right before this happened, like before I went on this trip, this is actually quite scary. I was sitting on a dinner with 2 friends, and we were talking about the holidays and like what we wanted, like intention settings or whatever. And we were all 3 just so overworked, so stressed. This was with Cronia and Antonia. And like, I feel like the 3 of us were just like, working around the clock. We were all running our own companies. Yeah. I was running an agency at a time. And I remember saying, I was like, gosh, it's almost like I'm waiting for a disaster to happen for me to wake up.
Right.
Jeez, like I'm never going to say those words ever again. Not the disaster I was asking for. And yeah, I definitely got woken up. And it definitely created a before and after of this, of this rock bottom. And I wasn't able to get up in the morning. And I think it created a completely new sense of empathy to people who struggle with depression and, anxiety disorders, because to not open your eyes in the morning and just be like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Is like, I realized how privileged I had been.
And having known you were the Energizer Bunny. Like you were, early employee at Uber, one of the biggest tech startups, and you built that business up from the ground. Like people could count on you every day. Babba shows up. I can't even think of a day you didn't come into the office.
No.
Since we met at work. And I feel like you had this endless reserve of energy. And I'm sure it was really eye-opening to just not wake up and have access to that.
Yeah, it was like my greatest resource just like dissolved in front of my eyes. And I started going to therapy. But it's interesting because when you are at rock bottom, it's really hard to even seek out the help, which is another thing that gave me a lot of empathy to people who are, you know, sick or whatever. Like I think about our healthcare system a lot. Like when my mother went through cancer, like she didn't have it in herself to like read all the paperwork and figure out the medical system. And I mean, in the times that we're right now, talk about like the undocumented people, like they're not in a place where they're like, yeah, let me read up about immigration law. Like, this is like
you're in survival mode.
You're in survival mode.
Yeah.
Like it's so different. So for me, if it wasn't for the fact that I had Carl by my side, I don't know what I would have done. Like he, from a work perspective, he basically like became the connector with my team. Right. And he was like, okay, like Babba is like we out of commission and just like any questions you guys have, like where you can't run the business just like day to day, like go through me and I will like see if I can get the answers or figure it out myself. So that was one. And my director of business, Julia, who was on the company side, I mean, she all really like this really goes to show like how your community is so important. She, you know, really held the fort. And then on the personal side, Carl found me a therapist. And it was actually funny because the therapist initially thought I was in like an abusive relationship or something. She thought I had like a very controlling man because she's like, I've never had like someone else, you know, interview the therapist for someone else.
As if he's like making sure she's going to take his side when you tell her what's really going on, which is, if you know Carl, he's the best.
So she was like very, and then also in all my therapy sessions, like for the entire first year, I never even mentioned Carl in therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because out of all the problems I've had, like, trust me, Carl is the least of my concerns. Like, I was like, it was always work or, you know, my anxiety or Anton or whatever. And at one point she's like, you never talk about Carl. But yeah, I started therapy. And then the other thing that actually became a huge turning point, and this was thanks to you introduced me to acupuncture. I remember you just booked me. And I think this is the other thing is like everyone wants to help and they're like, let me know if I can help you with anything. But the person who's hurting oftentimes doesn't even know what they need. Yeah. And it takes a lot of balls for someone to just step in and be like, I think you need this and I'm just going to facilitate this for you. And you did that with acupuncture and I'm very grateful. So and then I started doing acupuncture weekly and it was, I mean, incredible. I think I had so much like stored trauma, tension, like I was not healthy. There was just so much that was just like tied like this. And then when I started to basically flush the system on a weekly basis through acupuncture, I just started to like get to know myself. And I started to reconnect with my own organs. I was like, oh, like when I feel this, it's probably because of this. You know, it's like I started to connect with myself. And without even realizing, this became actually the starting point of a new chapter where I really started to care for myself. And it doesn't need to be so binary where, you know, people think sometimes that, oh, if you're going to go through self-care, then you're no longer like professionally active or you're, you know, it's like your ambitions go down. Like, no, I mean, look at me. I've started another company and, you know, I'm, you know, also working a lot again, but I have a different foundation today. And I built that foundation through that pain and because of necessity. Right. I needed to survive. And slowly but surely I started, you know, waking up with a little bit more energy and I started to find like little pockets of joy. But I needed to turn down the volume to 0 first and not be on emails, like not have any responsibilities. The only responsibility I had, and this was because my therapist was like, this will help you, was to take out the dog in the morning. Because the hardest thing is getting out of bed when you are in a state of depression. And Blue, my dog, she needs to pee. And then you're doing it for someone else, which is sometimes it's easier to show up for someone else than yourself. And basically, I remember telling myself every morning, I'm like, she needs to pee. And even if I'm just out with her for 5 minutes, that's the only goal. The only goal is to get out the door with her so she can pee. But then you come out and you're like, it's a beautiful day. And you feel the sunshine on your face. Or you're like, I smell freshly baked bread. Should I go and get a pastry? It leads to other things. So more often than not, I would end up being out for an entire hour and grab a coffee or sit in the park. And then I started bringing a book, and then I started bringing a journal, and it started to lead to all these, little rituals. And so I think through this chapter, I built up a foundation of self-care, wellness that I think has been crucial in getting me to where I am today. Yeah. Especially in preparation for pregnancy. I wasn't even thinking about kids back then, but a year later, I suddenly felt ready for children. And I had then spent a year of no coffee, no alcohol, no stress, weekly acupuncture, monthly massages. I was really taking care of myself while also working, but I would turn down the volume on everything else. And I think that impacted my ability to get pregnant. It, created a foundation for a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah, because I feel, just having known you before, that to your point, you weren't even thinking about it, and the few thoughts you did have about getting pregnant or having a child were not
there was anxiety
that we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And to the point of being so disconnected from yourself, and I've been in that place too, to imagine bringing a child into this world when you don't even feel like you know yourself, you don't even feel connected to your own body. Yeah. So first off, pregnancy requires so much connection to your body, and then raising a child. Yeah. When you're still in this place of operating out of survival, how am I going to react to this new life?
Yeah, and I also... I think because I was so disconnected from my body, I didn't give my body enough credit. I was like, I don't think I can do it. I don't know if my body can do this. And now I've been blessed with birthing 4 babies that have all been, somehow created in this body. So you really are so much more capable than you think. Yeah. And it just goes to show, just like my mom has the limiting belief that the lesson learned is she should have married rich, it's I was thinking that other women can do this, but not me. Why? Why would I be less than other women?
I was always an anti-vitamin girl. Please don't come for me, but this is just how I felt. It never felt right taking pills, powders, or the most confusing, sugar-filled gummies to get the nutrients that we should be getting from our food. But as I got older, and with every doctor's visit and blood work panel, it was becoming clear. I needed supplements. I was iron, vitamin D, and vitamin B deficient, and I could feel it. Sluggishness, oversleeping, and low mood. So I begrudgingly added these pills to my diet, but my blood work kept coming back the same. Then I met Sarah, the founder of GEM. She created a real food supplement which contains 20 vitamins and nutrients and is designed for maximum nutrient absorption. Sarah explained to me that poor absorption from capsules is probably why my blood work wasn't improving almost a year into taking my vitamins. I started taking GEM a few months ago, and the results are undeniable. I've been taking their daily bite, and I had my first blood work that didn't show vitamin B and D deficiency in over 2 years. Plus, the bites are actually delicious. Sarah kindly shared a code with us, so you can get 15% off of your order using the code ROCKBOTTOM or by visiting dailygem.com/rockbottom. Thank you, Sarah, for creating this product and finally getting me to take my vitamins. What is something that people kept saying to you during that time that was not helpful?
Probably a lot of things, but I don't know. I think I opened up so much compassion during that time that I just like relabeled everything people said to me, and I just relabeled it as like they're trying to love me, they're trying to help, you know. It's really hard to be there for someone that's hurting, and I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by then dissecting how they show up, you know. It's like everyone's just doing their best, you know. So I
love that perspective.
That's
beautiful.
It's like, you know, people sent flowers, people sent books, people like there are some things that were more memorable than others. Like obviously very memorable that you booked me that acupuncture, like that Carl booked me a therapist and found me a therapist that was covered within insurance, so then the cost wouldn't be the reason to stop doing it, you know.
Right.
And then someone sent me, there were a couple of books that people sent that were really helpful, and then I received gratitude journals that were also super helpful. And
was there any one thing, I know you mentioned the acupuncture, but even like a small thing that you feel like, and you mentioned taking the dog out, something small that you feel like had an outsized return?
Yeah, so definitely like that, just having a super small barrier to entry to something good. Like we all know that like moving your body or being outside is helpful, but that's like a mountain to climb when you're not feeling well. So if you can like find a little mini entry point to something that could lead to something good, but where the effort is very minimal. So the other thing was at night, gratitude journal is another thing that felt like a mountain to climb. But then Carl and I did it together. And Carl was like, we'll just find 3 things we're grateful for today, and then 1 thing we look forward to tomorrow. And it was like a conversation. And then it became a habit, and I started writing them down myself. But in the beginning, I didn't even have that in me.
I don't think you even had the energy to pick up a pen.
No, exactly. So, that was too much. So I think those are great ways to be there for someone. Also, people who showed up with food. Food is it's like I love food, and it's the first thing that I don't know how to do when I'm not feeling well. For some people, food is like their therapy. Like for me, it's like another mountain to climb. So yeah, and the thing is, food is medicine. So Absolutely. Like it's so connected to how you feel. So nourishment and sleep is another small thing that made a big difference. And then also giving up alcohol. I think we don't talk about that enough, but like what does alcohol do? It numbs you. And like the last thing you need in a moment of hurting is to numb it. Like you actually need to flush it and like, you know, get it out of your system. So I gave up coffee and alcohol because both of those things were like disrupting like my hormonal balance. And it was the best thing ever. It also completely reshaped my relationship to alcohol. I never had a problem with alcohol, but I remember drinking during times that I wasn't even excited to drink. Because it was just a social norm. And I mean, this was also, you know, pre-COVID, you would go to like a happy hour after work, and non-alcoholic didn't even exist on the menu, you know, unless you wanted a soda filled with sugar. So yeah, it became a movement for me. I started to be like, places should have non-alcoholic options. And I started like becoming an advocate for it. And I would ask at restaurants, and if I went to a fashion event, I'm like, I would have something non-alcoholic, thank you. And they would be like, oh, I don't know. You know. I also went to a meditation retreat. I went to the Deepak Chopra. That was also incredibly powerful and really gave me the tools for how to like find stillness at a moment's notice. And I think meditation is something that is so accessible to us, yet feels like so inaccessible unless you like train that muscle. It's the same thing with running. In theory, everyone can pick up a pair of shoes and go out and run. Does everyone do it? No. And it's a muscle that needs to be trained. And I think the same goes for meditation. So I actually am a big advocate for these like meditation retreats, even if you're not a meditator. Actually, even more so if you're not, because that will give you that muscle training to bring home for the rest of the year.
The foundation.
Yeah.
Well, and I think when we're in that go, fight or flight that you talk about before the rock bottom, we are so disconnected from ourselves. It almost feels scary to sit with your own thoughts.
Yeah.
I know I lived in that space for so many years where I would, from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to sleep, have noise.
Yeah.
Music, podcasts, TV, and I slept with the TV on. And the thought to go quiet can be so terrifying. But then I think what happens when you're in a rock bottom is that actually all that noise has now become your worst enemy. And so you have to get to a place of quiet, whether you're choosing to or not.
The other thing with meditation is that the way we think meditation works is not the way it works when you're a beginner.
Right.
People think they're going to reach some sort of nirvana or that it's going to be relaxing or, it's like, it's actually none of that in the beginning. Right. It's like the same thing when you go out for a run. Like in the beginning, you're not getting a runner's high. Yeah. You're just like out of breath and you're in pain. But then you become addicted to it and you have this like runner's high and your body's craving to go out for a run. Same thing with meditation, but it's a delayed gratification.
Yeah. And the other thing I just want to touch on that you mentioned is how you needed to feel your feelings and you need to flush it out of your body. And I just think that's such an important thing for us to talk about, because I think what happens to so many people is life is happening and these challenging moments arise and we're powering through, which is what you were probably doing until this really catastrophic event arrived, and which all of us do. And for some people, the catastrophic event arises and we still are pushing through. And actually, we're so afraid to go to that place of grief and sadness. But I think it was by going there that you were able to come out, not to put words in your mouth.
No, but I definitely think you're hitting. And I think like the point of life is to grow and learn. And when we refuse to look at it from that lens, we get challenged over and over again to get there, And I think I probably had a lot of, little more subtle nudges. Mm-hmm. And clearly I wasn't listening. Right. And I mean, my like first rock bottom was when I got pregnant when I was 24. And I was on the pill. I was definitely not trying to get pregnant. And I was actually almost 4 months pregnant, which is crazy. And everyone was like, oh my God, but didn't you have like nausea? Didn't you have like the symptoms? Didn't you miss having your period for, 2 months? And I was like, I guess I had all of those things, but I was so disconnected from my body that I wasn't paying attention. Like, yes, I was nauseous, but I was like, oh, so annoying that I'm sick again. I just need to go to work, Right. And then the reason I found out I was pregnant was because I was so nauseous at one point where I was like, whatever this virus I have is, someone needs to just fix it and get it out of my body right away because I have work to do. And I got so mad. And I remember like walking into storming into the doctor's office. I was like, just like, I need you guys to run like the test or whatever. I'm like not feeling good. And they're like, oh, explain your symptoms and, explain my symptoms. And they're like, okay, we're going to start with a pregnancy test. And I was like, no, guys, I am not pregnant. I'm on the pill. I am sick and I need you guys to fix it.
Oh my gosh.
And then they're like, okay, we're still going to do a pregnancy test. And then it turns out I'm pregnant. Yeah. And I almost felt like my life like passed through me. Yeah. In my mind, people who got pregnant unplanned were other people, not me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In my mind, it was like, oh, you're, I don't know, out and about having one night stands or, like again, like this idea of like, what is a rape? What is a suicide? What is an unplanned pregnancy? Like such a narrow view until it happens to you. And you're like, oh, it's a little more nuanced than that. Right. And and I had to go through a pretty traumatic abortion because I was so far along. But I also felt in every ounce of my body that this was not the time for me to become a mother. And also, I don't think it would have been a healthy pregnancy. I was still taking the pill because I didn't know I was pregnant. So anyways, I think from being that disconnected to my body to then coming out on the other side of this experience when I was pregnant with Alma, I knew before it would even show on a pregnancy test. I just knew. because I was so in touch with my body.
Right.
And I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be the person. A, I never thought I would have 4 kids. 2, I never thought I would have natural births.
Yeah.
I never thought I would say no to an epidural. Like, I've just like surprised myself so many times. And it is all through just this finding back to your own intuitive power.
Yeah.
Your inner genius.
I love that. And I think, you know, sometimes we do need such a wake-up call from the universe, because the universe has been knocking on our door and we've not been listening. And, you know, that's not to minimize what happened and the tragedy of it.
No, of course.
But however it shows up for us, I think sometimes having that perspective on the other side of, this was also part of getting me to where I needed to go.
Totally.
So that's what I want to ask you next is, what came on the other side of the rock bottom? What has happened since you've talked about getting pregnant, having 4 beautiful girls? And I know there's obviously so much that has happened, but I think especially want to touch on what you feel you may have manifested or been able to create that maybe you wouldn't have been able to had you not gone through that experience.
I think the first thing that happened that I think it has been the enabler to all of like my more tangible blessings, like my 4 children, my company, the house I, you know, have built and whatever, is that I became spiritual. I wasn't spiritual before. Right. I wasn't religious. I wasn't spiritual. I was the kind of person who was like, I believe in science.
Right.
So what's the proof that, you know, like being so
like, you're not going to get me. That was me too.
Totally. I just believe in science. It was like such a good argument because that sounds so smart. And then you realize that, you know what, you can believe in science and also, you know, be humble enough to the fact that we haven't been able to put science behind everything yet. Because even like, and actually the thing that converted me a little bit is that when you think about the brain, the human brain, we still know so little about the human brain. And what we know, like 90% of what we know, we learned in the last like 2 decades.
Right.
Like, so that just goes to show that like, we clearly don't know everything, you know, like it would be silly to think that us stupid humans would know everything. Right. So yeah, I became spiritual and I found, you know, my spiritual practice in just like really trusting the universe and really, I think going through something so painful as losing a loved one in such a traumatic, unexpected way and then heal, like I don't see how you cannot become spiritual from that, because I actually thought my life was over too. Like I was just like I don't want to live like this. I remember walking out, the first time I walked out of my apartment. Actually, no, when I was flying back after having, you know, just buried my brother in Chile and flying back to New York. And I saw people like rushing and I saw, you know, people, you know, living their normal lives. And I was like, hello.
Right.
Someone died.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously people die all the time, but it's not until it happens to you. And I was like, wow, like people are just like sleeping. People are living under a rock. And like, I'm like here being like, hello. So it really like ignited something in me. And then I became really spiritual after my first experience with clairvoyance. So that I think was like a chapter turner for me. So Sophia, a good friend of mine, similar to you, she was like, I'm just going to like do something for Babba and I'm not going to ask her. I'm just going to book it. And she was like, oh, I booked a session for you. Here is like the address. It's at the Four Seasons Hotel and you can stay after at the spa. I was like, oh, nice. Turns out it's a clairvoyance session. And
the only way to get Babba to a clairvoyant,
tell her it's a
spa.
Exactly. And it was Daganit who did it. And she literally connected me to my brother. It was so wild. And I know I sound so cuckoo, but like in that session, she basically like became my brother. And she has never met my brother. I never even posted about my brother on social. Like no one knows anything about my brother. And suddenly she starts talking like him at the pace that my brothers talked like really fast. And he was like also really silly and like would do really stupid jokes and then be super serious. And she did all of that. And she was like channeling him. And then I got to ask all my questions of, like why, and it became such a closure for me. I think that's really when I was like, two things happened for me there. One, I was like, he's not gone. He's still here. I can access him. And like, he's definitely here right now. Two.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps.
Two, it made me accept what happened because he was happy. And he was like, this was my time. Like, and I was like, he's good. And he's still here. And also, I'm good. I'm safe,
Right.
So it's hard to not become spiritual, I think, after something like that. And having a spiritual practice of just finding gratitude in the everyday moment and trusting that the universe has your back and that everything that happens for a reason. It happens for you. It doesn't happen to you is such a powerful mind shift. And I think about that a lot. Like even in running a company, you're faced with so many challenges and, someone resigns or an investor pulls out or someone, I don't know, you experience fraud, whatever it is. Like I now have this like super Delulu mindset where I'm like, it's happening for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what there is to learn.
Yeah.
Even if I'm like not 100% sure this is a good thing, I will find a way to twist it to something good.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that at the end of the day, like we're the creators of our own reality.
Yeah.
Like you can describe this room that we're sitting in as small and dark, or you can describe it as cozy, design oriented. It's like
totally
you set the label. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's also so easy for people to look at you and your life and you obviously share a lot on social media. I think you're very vulnerable and honest, but I think also people have selective memory, and especially with people who don't believe it's possible for them, it can be very easy to look at your life and say, well, she just has all this stuff because she's lucky, or she has money that I don't have, or she has a husband that I don't have. But I think what people miss sometimes is that I think it's all this gratitude, and I think it's all this trust in something bigger and that things are working for you, not against you, that has manifested this beautiful life that you have created. As someone who's known you for years and through all these different chapters, like I feel like you really move through the world with gratitude. That's not to say things always go your way, but I think when you say that, finding that spiritual connection has helped you to find the gratitude and the trust in every moment. I just wanted to touch on that because I think sometimes people they think that you're getting things because the world is giving them to you.
Yeah.
Versus realizing you're actually creating them from a vibration of gratitude and not I'm grateful, but secretly hating.
No, exactly. You have to
miserable.
mean it.
Yeah.
And it is, that's why it's a muscle too. I think similar to like meditating and running and all of that. It's like, it's something you have to train. But I think the other thing, I get this sometimes, is like, oh yeah, but it's easy for you to be grateful. Like if I had, then I would also be grateful. And it's like, but you don't get it. Like there's someone that's looking at you saying that, but if I had, then I would be grateful.
Running water.
Yeah. So like then who gets to set the bar? Because I could also sit here and be like, I have a ton of challenges that I just don't air all my dirty laundry because you know what? I don't focus on that as much.
Yeah.
I focus more on the nice things. So that's why I'm projecting out luck because I feel lucky, because I decide to feel lucky, So, and the other thing too is you also have to know when it's time to move on. And I have been very vulnerable and open through, the different challenges that I've had. When my brother passed, I shared that on social. When I birthed my first daughter and she was at the NICU for 2 weeks and I was, worried and whatever. All my kids had ended up at the NICU. But then I move on. It's like I flush the system. I feel everything I need to feel. And then I find gratitude and I move to the next thing. And I think sometimes people get very hung up on the one thing that was really difficult for them. And it becomes their entire identity. And it's like the victim, vest.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can like take off that victim vest and hang it up somewhere and, move on with your life. But you have to flush the system before you can do that.
Yeah. And I think that's what sometimes people miss. They think that I can just keep pushing through and I can power my way through the challenging moments. to your point, you're not filming yourself when you're crying and having a hard day, but I've gotten phone calls, we've had late nights.
I cried in this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've tapped into feeling the things that are coming up.
Yeah.
And that's truly, I think, it's a muscle, I think, that we also have to work. I think a lot of us have a program, and even our bodies have been trained to suppress emotion.
Totally. And I think it's also cultural. Like, I definitely grew up hearing, like, don't cry.
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting how little interest our parents, at least my parents, had in my emotions. They just wanted me to be happy and also to be grateful. And that's the other thing, is like, you can't force someone to be grateful when they're experiencing something, Like, I can find gratitude at the end of the day and list 3 things I'm grateful for, but that's not going to be instead of crying.
Yeah, after.
It's after.
Yeah.
Like, they need to coexist. And I think growing up, it was just like, you're too pretty to cry. Don't cry.
Yeah.
If I had your life, and it's like,
Right.
those are really like.
But then you're like a little girl smiling, but you're like, wait, but I'm so sad or angry or confused or.
And it's a very, I don't know, it's a real trigger for me when people are like, if I had your, and that's why whenever I follow, it's like, oh, but it's easy for you, because if I had, I see how like I get like all tensed up because it is so ingrained in me since being a little kid, where like I didn't feel super fortunate. Like compared to my friends, I was poor. But yes, compared to like my cousins in Chile, I was lucky. But that didn't mean that me not having enough money to go on the field trip in my local school wouldn't affect me.
Right.
Like that's still my reality, but I almost felt like I wasn't allowed to have my own reality because I should be so grateful because if I had your life.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point. It's like you have to cultivate gratitude from within. It's another one that can't just be forced on you.
Yeah,
because
no one can just tell you.
Gratitude, that's suppressed emotion.
That's well put.
Suppression.
Yeah, that's a very different,
I'm curious, is there anything you think that you have achieved or manifested that you don't think you would have had you not had this experience?
Definitely my family. I owe my entire, the relationship to my husband and the 4 children we have created to my rock bottom and the spiritual journey that came following that. I don't think that you can build real, true, meaningful relationships until you build that relationship with yourself. And when you're really numb or constantly numbing yourself, whether that's with, substances or busyness or whatever it is, you're not able to tap into that substance. So for me, I feel like my relationship with Carl even got so deepened through all of this. And I remember feeling so embarrassed because I never wanted to be a burden to anyone. It was so not my character because...
Well, you were 8 years old taking care of the adults around you.
So all I knew is that I can't lean on anyone.
And actually everyone is leaning on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm in a relationship where I have a partner who is very happy to have me leaning on him, but I am refusing to. And that, I think, was a barrier that I wasn't even realizing that was created between us, where like we would not have reached our full potential as a couple if we wouldn't have taken off those masks and finding that vulnerability. And you build really meaningful relationships through hardships and shared hardships. So I'm grateful for that. Same thing, when my kids were at the NICU, it really created a bonding opportunity for me and my husband.
And it sounds like asking for help was not in your vocabulary. And then when you are in survival mode and you go through a time where you literally can't get out of bed, you're going to have to ask someone for help.
And I think I'm still working on that one because the universe keeps throwing a few curveballs at me. Like I was on bed rest for 2 months with my last pregnancy, and I was fundraising and suddenly on bed rest, and I was not even allowed to make myself breakfast, like, so I'm fully relying on, I don't know who,
Right.
someone, I guess my husband,
Right.
to make me breakfast, make me meals, take care of our other 2 toddlers, like, so uncomfortable. So I think this is something that I'm still working through
Yeah.
because it keeps showing up in my
Yeah.
life of like, just ask for help. Like,
Yeah.
let people help you.
Yeah, let go.
Yeah.
A little. If you could send a message in a bottle to the version of you who was in that moment, that rock bottom moment, what would you say?
Your life hasn't even begun.
Mm.
It's so easy to think that like this is the end.
Yeah.
And it's like life hasn't even begun. And my life now has probably still not even begun.
Yeah. Right. Oh, I get choked up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Babba, thank you so much for sharing your story. So much beautiful insight. And we're just going to wrap up here with some rapid fire questions. And you can just say whatever comes to mind first. What is something that you spent too much time or money on during that time thinking it could fix everything?
I definitely spent a lot of money on like all sorts of alternative medicine and wellness and herbs. And honestly, like none of it alone will fix everything. But it could be a piece of it.
Yeah.
I bought a lot of weird herbs
Yeah.
that I probably didn't even take.
Yeah, the tinctures.
Yeah, so many tinctures.
Yeah.
When I moved, I was like, why do I have 55 tinctures?
But to your point about getting that spiritual belief, I'm a big believer in if you think it's going to help you, it will help.
Totally.
Placebo effect is an effect.
Totally.
So
but you need to stay consistent. And
Yeah.
that's the problem if you're like buying one thing and then another. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't think it matters as much what it is. Yeah. It's just like finding a ritual.
Yeah. The tinctures have been there. What is a book, movie, song, or work of art that saved you during that time?
I didn't read this book. I think I picked it up during that time, but I clearly wasn't ready because it just felt like algebra when I opened it. And then later, I think actually like a year later when I was more in my spiritual era, I was able to digest it. And it was the New Earth book by Eckhart Tolle. And that book,
it's somewhere here on the coffee table.
Yeah, probably. That book completely changed my life. It's incredible. And it's interesting how I picked up that book so many times and could not even like finish one page. And then suddenly I picked it up and I could not put it down.
Yeah. Yeah, and Eckhart says that about that book and about all his books. He says if you pick it up and it doesn't mean anything to you, it's fine. You're not ready.
Yeah.
He would never say you're not ready, but I think that's what he means. And that, yeah, there has to be something that has begun awakening in you for you to even understand the words. And he is very wordy and it's quite dense. I had the same exact experience with that book, picked it up so many times, joined book clubs, and then, would get into week one and be like, what the hell I can't even read this.
The Power of Now, I think I read during my grieving period. So that's why I was excited about the New Earth, but it was just did not hit the same way until later. And then it became my Bible.
I love it. If you could write one sentence on a sticky note for someone in their own rock bottom, what would it say?
These too shall pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I say that to myself when I'm in, different like versions of rock bottoms, or also just like in toddler land. Like sometimes I look around, I'm like, why is like all 4 kids screaming at the same time? And then I'm like, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
They're going to run tired of screaming at some point.
Yeah, they'll all be in bed soon. Okay, incredible. So we always end with a message from the guest before you. Since you're our first guest, I've recorded a message for you.
Oh.
So we'll play this message and just see if there's something in it for you. I've been thinking a lot lately about how to become a new version of yourself, you have to kill the old version. And I think that's really sad. And we have to grieve that. And the old version is also going to fight for her life because she thinks that being the way she is, as destructive or self-sabotaging or miserable or depressed as she is, she thinks that that's how she's going to survive. So she's going to fight for her life to continue operating the way she has been, but she will actually have to die in order for the person you're becoming to emerge. That's just something that's been on my mind, so I wanted to share.
That's so well put. And the part about she's going to fight for her life hits home. Because I think we've heard like, oh yeah, you have to like let go of something to make room for something else. But no one tells you that that something is going to fight to stay.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Babba, thank you so much for joining us, for being our first guest. I'm so honored. You're my closest friend in the world, so I can't think of anyone else I would have rather had.
I know, you're my sister. I'm so grateful, Mayssa, and congrats on this podcast. This is so exciting. You're going to do amazing. You're such a great host, and these are topics that I think are so needed and that most people don't bring to the surface unless asked to. So thank you for creating that space.
Thank you for sharing vulnerably, Babba. And I really think your story is going to resonate and hold so much wisdom for so many people. So I can't wait. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Rock Bottom. If you enjoyed this conversation, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, follow, and leave us a review. And if there's someone you love who could benefit from this conversation, we'd so appreciate you sharing this episode with them. You can find the Rock Bottom podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us at rockbottom.pod on Instagram and TikTok. We'll see you next time.
Rock Bottom was created by Mayssa Chehata and is produced by me, Desta Winterrad. With production support and audio engineering by Johnny Simon, this episode was produced and recorded in New York City by Wonder Studios. Thank you for listening.